start this. All right, so I know the 30-minute time
What kind of
limit.
recording thing you got? You got like OBS Studio?
Yeah, I use OBS.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
easiest.
this is a very interesting experience. Since I've been a fan of your work for a while, so thank you for
Yeah,
allowing me to do this. I appreciate
yeah.
you.
Thanks for watching and thanks for buying. Thanks for buying. I think what was a T-shirt or a pair of socks?
I ended up getting some socks because I wanted to get a hoodie, but the store was out of my size. But I am going to keep an eye out because whenever it's back in stock in my size, I'm definitely going to have to get me a hoodie.
Yeah, sure it is. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, should be soon later this month, and lots of other cool things. That's part of what my trip to Norway is right now. I'm picking up some lots of cool new things to have in the shop, so it'll be cool things to have.
Oh, okay, all right, very cool, very cool. All right, well, I will be looking out for that. All right,
Yeah.
so is your name actually Michael?
Yeah, Mikkel in Norwegian. Yeah.
Okay, because
Thor's like just the kind of my gym name that I picked
uh,
up when I was a kid, and then
okay.
and then it became my DJ name once it started making music. So that's
Okay,
it.
okay. Because I think on your music channel, on your Instagram, it says your name is like Tor
Yeah,
Ilipson. However you say that, I'm not sure.
yeah. That is my last name, my
Okay.
mother's maiden name, Norwegian, but yeah, real name's Michael Pascoe.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Let me go and get this timer started. All right. So once again, thank you, Michael, for taking the time out of your day to do this with me. So I
No problem.
suppose the first question I would have for you is like, what do you call yourself? Because I know
What?
for people who practice the religion you do, there's a lot of different identities. Some people say they're also true. Some people say they're a heathen. Some people just say they're Norse pagan. Like, what's your personal identity?
Yeah, I go with the Norse Pagan one. That's just always what I've done. They're kind of all the same thing, though, just different
Mm-hmm.
ways to call it. It depends on who you're asking. The Asa True and Heathen would be more popular in America, but then
Mm-hmm.
in Europe, they usually call themselves Pagan or something like that.
Okay. Okay. So, what would you say is the most fundamental aspect or aspects of your religion?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like as far as the beliefs or the practice go, what would you say?
Um, I guess the beliefs.
Hmm. I guess for both, animism.
And
Animism would be like the most focused, fundamental original value, and that's just the belief that uh, everything has a spirit, and any kind of tree or plant or even rocks or seasons or weather or things like that, the sun, the
mm-hmm.
moon, because this is what every human believed long ago. And
Right.
when you start to realize that and believe in those types of things, then all of the beliefs and the myths and the traditions and rituals even start to make a whole lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. All right. Very nice. So what would you say is the most unique thing about your religion or your practice, however you want to call it?
And another difficult question. It's yeah, that's it. People are the general people think that the Norse paganism is actually pretty unique, but when you start to know about the other paganisms around the world, you start to
Mm-hmm.
realize, they aren't actually that different at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say the most unique is that they have still a very, very good preserved written record of the religion, of the
Mm-hmm.
myths, and even the traditions. I know it's still not that much, but
Right.
it's a whole lot more than most other
Yeah.
religions around the world have.
Yeah. Especially in Europe, because like Anglo-Saxon paganism, there's almost like nothing to go off of. Just for an
Yeah,
example.
exactly.
So
Celtic paganism
yeah,
too, Eastern, everything.
exactly. So yeah, so I get okay, all right, that's interesting. Um, what makes you a strong believer in your faith in your religion?
Yeah, it's just going back to the animism, the
Mm-hmm.
fact of animism, and that's lots of humans around the world believe similar things. but mostly because modern science is, proving a lot of these things to be correct.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are wrong, of course. Ancient humans, there's no way they could have known about certain things, but when you find out that they actually were right about certain things, and modern science is just now starting to rediscover that, that's what makes me believe the most.
Okay, well, that's actually a pretty interesting point. So, could you give me an example of something that modern science would agree with your beliefs? Because
Well,
in this day and age, but a lot of people, think religion and science, any religion is directly in conflict with science. That's kind of an interesting thing that you brought up. So, can you give me an example?
hmm. So there's something that people have thought have been inanimate objects for a long time, right? But
Right.
ancient cultures all worship these things. A perfect example is trees.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that they're just, trees. They don't have any thoughts. But modern science has proven that they actually have the ability to feel pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
They release chemicals that are similar to what pain is, and then
Mm-hmm.
they've found that the trees can communicate with each other through the mushrooms conducting electricity through the ground. And certain trees, if one's getting cut down, they'll actually send signals to warn other trees in the forest. So that is just one thing that we've rediscovered recently now that humans, again, all throughout history have believed.
That is fascinating, huh? Have you made a video on that before? Because I feel like that kind of rings a bell.
I spoke a little bit about trees in one video, but I didn't go into the science so much of it. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a guy called Sadhguru. He's an Indian guy. He speaks a lot more about that if you want to research a bit
Oh, okay, okay. So, um, most people when they think of the old Norse pagan religion, they they tend to think of the myths. Thor fighting, Jormungandr or Odin killing Ymir, like all these spectacular um, stories. So, and I think the average person when they hear about someone like you who is a practitioner of the religion that these myths are connected to, excuse me, I think most people off initially think that you must literally believe in these stories and these myths because most people come from a Abrahamic monotheistic background where for the most part people tend to literally believe what's in the Bible or the Quran, much more than probably somebody like you with the text that you have. So, do you actually literally believe in these myths, or are they more just like stories that are meant to like convey a message and like teach a lesson or something?
Yeah, it's a good question, and that's where some people get lost. And these are just me talking here, and this is kind of what is historically practiced, and what even still so practiced today. But there are definitely some people that believe that these actually are superhuman gods. I'm sure you've seen plenty of those people around
Mm-hmm.
online.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but whether they are, symbolic, the myths are of course symbolic. Well, we know that has been proven all over the world. But whether, the ancient Greeks said it best that we make the gods into human characters, but if cows could paint or a lion could paint, then they would make their gods lions and cows. So it's
Mm-hmm.
of
Okay.
course it's the humans that personify the gods, but the gods are certain energies, or they are seasons, or they are trees, and they're different things found in the nature and the universe. It's just that humans have painted them into these human-like figures, of course, resembling themselves, and the myths were created in a way that that particular culture could understand, which is why the gods look different, right? Like the Greek god Hercules is actually was originally the same as the Norse god Thor.
Mm-hmm.
But they molded them into two different people, and the myths were different, just so the people could understand. And a lot of people don't know that today, but again, there are lots of Greek philosophers that spoke about these types of things in ancient times.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Um, would you say that people who follow maybe the old Anglo-Saxon religion or the old German pagan religion, are those in essence the same religion as what you do, or is there enough distinction between them to where you kind of have to look at them as separate religious
Yeah.
entities?
Yeah, it's the same religion. So, but of course, the god names are going to be different. In the oldest Germanic religion, they would have called it Wotanas instead of Odin, and in Anglo-Saxon England, they would have called it Woden, and all these different regional differences in the gods' names. Of course, we don't have written records. The only written records we have are pretty much from the Norse sources, so those are the full preserved myths we have, but we can assume that most of the others have the same myths, and traditions would have, of course, been practiced a bit differently. So we do have some records of that. For example, the Anglo-Saxons would have conducted their religious ceremonies a little different from the Norse. So, of course, lots of regional variations, but yeah, same religion at the end of the day.
Okay, interesting. So let's see here. Okay. Here's a good question. So, what do you think happens when you die? Because most people, when they think of the afterlife in the old Norse religion, they think of like hell or Valhalla. But was that a more recent development in the grand scheme of things? That was more of a response to Christian influence, or has Valhalla and hell, those concepts, have they been within the framework of this religion for a lot longer than that?
Yeah. So I think you probably saw my video on that. That's a good question. So
Yeah.
Valhalla absolutely seems to be like a kind of new thing. The first written records we have of it is from about the year 900, and before that, Valhalla didn't seem like a place as an afterlife, because we have mentions of it in records before that. But yeah, it definitely seems like it's a new thing, and it was possibly influenced by the Christian heaven. Hell, though, on the other hand, is much older. We can see that in language, and that can go back many thousands of years. And that's not just a cold, miserable, dark place, of course. It's just simply a resting place. And even the word hell originally meant covered, or like hidden. So when you were buried underground, that's what it was. And of course, reincarnation is always in there. That's always in the sources. And in any European religion, reincarnation would have been the original belief if we go back far enough. And yeah, if we wanted to compare it to like the Eastern belief in like Brahman, or like Nirvana in Hinduism and Buddhism, which are related religions, it's being like you're reincarnated until you finally reach your spiritual awakening, and then you go to the paradise, the heaven, or Valhalla, or Brahman, or Nirvana, or those things. So that is, if we want to start to compare and realize, but again, there's no clear answers in our religion.
Okay, but so from what I'm gathering, if you had to guess, do you think there probably is a hell in the afterlife, even if it's a place that you might not get to right when you initially die? Maybe you have to go through a few cycles in life through reincarnation. Or is it kind of okay? And
so it seems like everyone goes to hell, and it's just a place where you rest and wait to be reincarnated. We have sources for this, and we have other religions with the same kind of things. You go to hell for a certain amount of time until you're reincarnated, and it's important that like there's different parts to your soul, right? It's not just our one soul that goes to hell and gets reincarnated. No, our soul splits up, and only one of us goes on here, and other parts of it lives on somewhere else, and then one part of it gets reincarnated. That's at least what the sources say.
Okay, interesting. So you would say, so you're saying hell is a place that you go to wait to be reincarnated. It's not that you die and you get reincarnated and you keep getting reincarnated, and then hell is the ultimate destination. You think if there is an ultimate destination, it's something different than hell, even if you're not sure what it is. Maybe Valhalla, maybe something else. Kind of, it's not clear.
Yeah, exactly. Could be Valhalla. That could be the end destination, but yeah, the sources aren't clear at least.
Okay, and I suppose we should probably reiterate. We mean hell, HEL, not HELL, not this eternal place of flame and torment where you get poked by little goblins for all eternity. Okay, so Would you and what I've encountered online is that there seems to be some debate about whether or not we can call the religion that you practice, Norse paganism, like a new age religion, or if it's an old religion. Because there's some people that say, well, there's a lot we don't know about how they used to practice it, because for a long time there was virtually no practitioners of the religion. It's been a more recent revival. So would you say that your religion is a new age religion that's based off old ideas, off an older religion, but it's different enough that you have to call it a new religion? Or would you say that your religion is close enough to how it was originally practiced that you could call it the same religion?
Yeah, good question. It depends how much you know about the original sources. Mm-hmm. Some people have recreated it completely from scratch and made their own religion. Mm-hmm. I think we definitely don't have enough sources to recreate the religion the way it would have been, but I think we have plenty to get very close at least. If we wanted to, of course, ideally would be if we had a farm with animals and certain substances even that might not be legal today, and certain practices that are probably not legal today. So we can get as close as we can as possible, but yeah, some things we're just not going to be able to do.
Okay. So how most people, at least in the West or in the monotheistic world, when they think of the word prayer, they think of going in a room and clasping their hands together, or getting on the ground and prostrating to a city in the Middle East, or depending on if you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew or whatever, and that's how they pray and they speak to their deities. How does prayer work in your religion? How do you communicate with the gods or spirits or the ancestors or whatever?
That's another good question. This is what I'm writing my book too. So
you're writing a book?
Yesterday, yeah, because nobody has really done any research on it yet, so I'm going to be the first one that's kind of compiling it all together.
That is interesting.
We have one record of an actual prayer to the gods, and that's all. But we have many records of invocations. So they've been prayed to in forms of magic. They think that writing the god's name on a stick would give it some certain power, or carving a god's name into an amulet, or saying the god's name out loud, asking it for something, asking it to make it rain or something like that. We have a lot more records of invocations like that than we do of traditional prayers.
Okay. So what's the big difference between praying to Thor or Odin and invoking Thor and Odin? Like you talked about, there's more invocations to go off of. Like what's the distinction between an invocation and a prayer?
Yeah, so a prayer is I think you would know better than me about this, but what I've read is invocations can be counted under the definition of prayer. So it is it is the same thing at the end of the day, but I guess the traditional prayer that most people would see in a church or something would be giving praise to God, or giving praise to their gods, and maybe asking them for something. Whereas a Norse prayer invocation type, it's more like getting the god to help you with a very, very specific task, like trying to catch a thief, and you ask for the god's name, or trying to make it rain, and asking the god help with that. And that's pretty much what we find all around the world too. Even some cultures, if we go back far enough in time, they are not really praying to their gods at all, but like trying to scare their gods and use intimidation and even trickery and to trick their gods into doing something. But as
Mm-hmm.
time goes on, it becomes more like nicely asking, and then eventually just praising and things like that. So that's something that we've seen all over the world too.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Now, for someone who has a YouTube channel called Norse Magic and Beliefs, I feel like I feel compelled to have to ask at least one question about the magic part. How important is magic in your daily practice?
Yeah, it depends what people call magic. I try to. I just group everything under one thing. It's not like I consider meditation to be a form of magic, or
Mm.
walking barefoot on the
Okay.
ground to be a form of magic, and that's something that they did that they in ancient times believed was magic, but today maybe we know the benefits to it. To walking barefoot on the ground, it helps your posture and your bones and releases the electrons from the ground into your body. So
Mm-hmm.
those types of those are probably the only types of things that I do. Some of the things that ancient humans did that we have some evidence that it
Mm-hmm.
gives some benefit until today. But and then I try out other things occasionally, once a week, every
Yeah.
few months maybe. But on the daily practices, it's more just the good habits that everyone should be doing anyway that we know are good for you.
Okay. Okay. Um, what are some of the most common forms of magic? I mean, the only one I'm really familiar with is like Sather. Is that how you say it? It's like the feminine kind of magic.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I know there's more than just that. Like what are the most common forms of Norse magic that you've seen used? Uh,
Yeah, so there's Seidr and there's Galdir.
mm,
Seidr is, I'd compare that to like a shamanic ritual,
mm,
something that you've seen like that. And then Galdir is simply like spells, which they would say a little word or rhyme or something, and then they believe that would give them some sort of effect.
okay.
But we see a whole bunch of kind of really weird things, especially that come up in the folk tradition that we know were done in a lot older times. Maybe they take 9 different tree branches from here, different forests, and then they would take, a frog's, slime, and then take a bird's feather and mix that all together, and they believed it was a love potion or something like that. Those are probably the most common because that's what we have the most records of.
Okay.
But yeah, there's no way to say because those are from more modern times, maybe the past 500-600 years. But those are at least the most we have records of.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Um, so what are the most important holidays or festivals or celebrations, whatever you want to call it, in your religion? Like what's your Christmas and Easter and Halloween and all that?
Yep, yep. So there's 3 major ones, and then there's tons of little ones throughout. But they're the major brutes, marking the times of year, the major sacrifices that would have been done in ancient times, and that's the New Year, and they would call that Vetternatter, Winter Nights, and that would be at the start of the winter, which is right around our Halloween time.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have the midwinter sacrifices, and that would be Yule, and that's what eventually turned into our Christmas time.
Okay.
And then we have the one at the start of the summer that was probably called Sigebrot, victory
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice, and then that's the final one. Just those 3 are the big ones.
Okay. Is the final one like the most important or like the most grand one?
Yeah. Probably
Probably.
probably not
Oh, okay.
because we only have 2 records of that one.
Mm-hmm.
The one we have the most records of is the Winter Nights for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's the start of the winter, and that was also their New Year celebration too. So that was probably the biggest
Okay.
party.
Okay. Okay. Now, how does one go about performing a blute? Because I've heard you use that word a lot in your videos, and I've seen some of your videos where you like take some meat and like use the blood to like put it on a stone. But like, how does that work in detail exactly?
Yeah, yeah. We don't know. A lot of that's reconstructed too.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely don't do it the proper way that it was done in ancient times. In
Mm-hmm.
ancient times, it would have been a massive party where the whole country shows up for a
Mm-hmm.
3-day festival with food and drinks and all that. And then the
Mm-hmm.
brute would be the sacrifice. They'd sacrifice the animal and put their blood on the altar, and they would probably drink the blood too at one point,
Mm-hmm.
and that would like ideally bring some prophetic visions to the religious leader doing that. And then of course they cook the animal, and then they eat all the meat and leave the inedible parts out on the trees to the other animals or on the altar or wherever. So that's the general idea, but of course there's a lot we don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. Um. So let's see here. We got about 6 minutes left. What would you say? I know that Norse pagans don't have an actual like holy text like a Bible, but like what would be like your equivalent? Like what are the most essential texts that someone who was wanting to learn more about your religion to go to? Like what is like your like key text?
Yep, it's just got to be the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda. That's it's not ideal, but
Mm-hmm.
it's about the myths.
Yeah.
It's what we have the most of, and that's what most people know. So that's
Mm.
we have to say that, but it really to get a full understanding, we need to know a little bit more than that.
Gotcha. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't the Poetic Edda a little more reliable because it was written like back when there was still a significant pagan
Yep,
population in Scandinavia?
yep,
Okay. Okay.
exactly. That's right.
And the Prose Edda was written, wasn't the Prose Edda actually written by like a Christian monk or scholar or somebody, Snorri? Right?
Yep, that's
Okay.
right.
So,
And
yeah.
that's a lot more detailed and easy to
Hmm.
read. But of course, it's there's a lot of it that's not reliable, and we
Yeah,
know
unfortunately.
it's not right
Yeah.
information.
Hmm. Do you think that also has contributed to some of the outlandish stories you hear about in the creation myths? Like,
Yeah,
do you almost think that he almost had to exaggerate and make it seem kind of ridiculous, so he
yeah,
wouldn't, get in trouble. He had to
yeah,
make it sound kind of
exactly.
unbelievable. Okay, interesting,
And
interesting.
it's amazing that we even have that, because, like I said, almost no other religions in Europe have any of their texts preserved. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very cool that we have that at least, even
Mm-hmm.
though it can lead us the wrong way.
Okay, okay, interesting. Now, yeah, growing up in the West, around a predominantly Christian area, I'm used to being around people who follow a religion, especially in the southern USA, which is heavily Protestant, where they say my way is the only way, and if you don't follow my way, you're going to be in for it when you die, buddy. So like, why
Yeah.
do you think your way is the only way? Like, if somebody doesn't practice the Norse religion, like what happens when they die? Like, do they go? Do they reincarnate and eventually go, or do they go to hell and then reincarnate and then eventually they go to a higher plane of existence, or how does that work? What do you think happens?
Yeah, I don't. I believe that everybody goes the same place.
Okay.
That would be what makes the most sense. If there's a big, if there's a God that exists and He's watching over us all, all humans and all animals and all life in general, even trees and plants, they would all go to the same place once they die. It's just
Right.
we all have different interpretations of it.
Okay. Okay.
But that's just my belief. It's different
Okay.
people, different interpretations.
Okay, interesting, interesting. So I would say, I got about we're at the 27-minute mark. One of the most controversial topics that I hear from people within your religious community is the topic of is if your religion is considered a closed practice. And what I mean by that is your religion open to people that are not of Scandinavian descent? Like, for example, yeah, if there's a someone of Slavic descent that's adopted by Norwegian parents and they grow up in Norway and like Norwegian culture is all they've known and that's their identity, would there be any problem with them wanting to practice Norse paganism because that's what they feel most drawn to culturally, even if it wouldn't be, a good reflection of what their ancestors would have practiced?
Yeah, no, it's of course. Ideally, in a perfect world, yeah, sure, maybe everyone should practice the same religion. their ancestor did.
Mm-hmm.
But we just don't have any records of all those religions in the world, unfortunately. So
Right.
I think it's great that people work together and people can come into Norse paganism.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe there aren't any texts from their ancestors in Eastern Europe. And I learn things all the time too, somewhere where we have something blank and the information's missing. In Norse paganism, I'll look to African tradition or Native American tradition. So, yeah, I think it's great that we all work together to uncover what the original beliefs were, because they weren't that different, like I said.
Oh, okay, all right. That's interesting because especially it makes it especially difficult for people that are from the United States and Canada who most of us don't know our ancestry. Our family lineage has been in America long enough where we can't trace our lineage back 200 years to figure out where our ancestors that got off the boat came from. So for a lot of people, at least in the U.S., in the United States and Canada, it can be a little difficult because most of us don't even know what our ancestry is in the first place. Outside of taking a DNA test, and even then, when you take a DNA test, those things aren't 100% accurate, so you really don't know exactly how much of what you have. It's really just kind of a generalized guess. So even that's not the greatest method to confirm your ancestry. All right, what are we at? We are at we're at 29 minutes. Okay, I'll ask you one more question. So this kind of ties back into what we were just talking about, in a sense. Is there any problem in your eyes with somebody following more than one pagan path? Like, if somebody has an Irish mother and a Swedish father, is there any issue of them wanting to honor both their ancestors by practicing Celtic paganism and Norse paganism?
No, not at all. It's like I just think it's great when people do that because there's some things that we just know, and we can use the other one to fill in the blanks. And the gods again too. If we go back far enough, the gods were all the same. They were the Indo-European gods, and they just split up into different ways. So yeah, it's really one religion, but lots of different ways of looking at it. If we go far back enough in time.
Okay, interesting. All right, well, we've officially reached the 30-minute mark, so I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. I had a lot of fun and had some interesting insights, and it really was an honor to actually be able to talk to you instead of just watching you through a screen through your video. This has actually been a pretty interesting experience for me.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. There was lots of good questions you asked me too. So. That's fun, and it's for a school project, you say?
Yes, it is for my sociology of religion class.
Yeah. Let me know how it goes, and if you have any other questions or sources that I could point you to.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I will definitely reach out to you and let you know how everything went.
Yeah,
all right.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, you have a good night over there in Norway.
Yep, sounds good. You have a good time there.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.